something about Aunt Jemima's.
They're tempting, appetizing, tasting, tantalizing, Aunt Jemima pancakes.
Oh, we'll wait till Jesus comes down by the river.
The Aunt Jemima character was created in 1889 and became a nostalgic icon of the Old South when the memory of plantation life was still fresh. Southern whites were painting a sentimental picture of the antebellum era to justify their defense of slavery in the Civil War, while Jim Crow laws kept blacks segregated from society. Those who didn't migrate from the South survived much as they had before emancipation, working the land as farmers and sharecroppers. Change was slow. The black mammy was called Aunt because Miss and Mrs. were titles reserved for white women. The Southern practice inflicted a double insult whenever she was addressed because everybody knew that Mammy was not one of the family. She was expected to push her own children's welfare to the edges of her concerns. They would be raised to survive in a world quite different than the one her little masters and mistresses would inhabit. Included in their plan was a monument to faithful colored mammies. A Senate bill was proposed in support of the monument, and money was raised. The bill was approved by the Senate, to great opposition from African Americans who dismissed the gesture as an attempt by the South to rewrite history. Designs for the monument were submitted by Confederate artists and swiftly countered by African American artists who suggested that the Senate pass a law to stop lynching Mammy's children, and noted that the Mammy they so revered had never been paid a penny for her service. Civil rights activist Mary Church Terrell declared that African Americans would pray for the Mammy Monument's destruction to spare her descendants such a cruel reminder of slavery. NAACP founder W.E.B. Du Bois described the Southern Mammy as one of the most pitiful of the world's Christs, an embodied sorrow whose dignity was stripped away when the white children she raised grew up to lynch her sons. Women's clubs denounced the monument, stating that the Mammy had been held in abject slavery. The plan to construct the Mammy Monument failed. The legitimacy of Confederate statues has remained an issue of debate to the present day as protesters demand that monuments to slavery be removed from public land. The Pearl Milling Company needed a way to market its self-rising pancake flour. Chris Rutt, one of the partners, found the answer at a minstrel show. When he saw a white man dressed in apron and headkerchief singing Old Aunt Jemima in blackface, he knew he had found his trademark. The song Old Aunt Jemima was based on a slave holler and written by a veteran black minstrel performer named Billy Kersans. That Aunt Jemima was conceived at a minstrel show foretold that she would reflect the low stereotypes of minstrelsy in which the performers mocked black life, spoke in slave dialect, and acted like befuddled buffoons. After failing to make a profit, the company and pancake recipe were sold to the R.T. Davis Milling Company in 1890. The Davis Company wrote a fictional history called The Life of Aunt Jemima. It proclaimed her the most famous colored woman in the world. It described her as a courteous antebellum darky, born and raised on Colonel Higby's plantation. She was portrayed as faithful to the colonel and a friend to the leaders of the Confederacy. After the war, she was paid for her recipe in gold. Nancy Green was hired to play the role of Aunt Jemima at the 1893 World's Fair. She was a great success as she cooked pancakes and recited Aunt Jemima's stories. She was the model for the company's advertising, imbuing her character with just the right amount of subservience with a smile. The ads recalled the good old days in the land of cotton. The Davis Company changed its name to Aunt Jemima Mills in 1914. Mrs. Green traveled extensively promoting the product until she was killed in an auto crash in 1923. Afterward, the company foundered and was sold to the Quaker Oats Company in 1926. Production of Aunt Jemima's products continued at Quaker Oats. The company marketed her plantation backstory well into the 1950s, and she certainly became more famous in the golden age of radio. Quaker Oats sponsored the variety minstrel show Aunt Jemima's Cabin at the Crossroads. A white cast portrayed black characters as uneducated simple folk who just loved to sing and dance. The scripts brought black stereotypes to a new and larger market. African American actresses still made personal appearances throughout the country, but the woman who started Aunt Jemima's radio career was Tess Gardella, a white actress in blackface makeup. Edith Wilson was the first of the African American Aunt Jemimas on the radio. The NAACP campaigned against stereotypes in the media. In 1915, they called for a boycott of the silent film Birth of a Nation because of its historical inaccuracies and racist content. NAACP protests shortened the popular Amos and Andy TV show to 2 seasons. Pressure from civil rights leaders brought an end to the stereotype lazy fools that Step and Fetch It portrayed. The Little Rascals and Our Gang shows were criticized for their pickaninny stereotypes. The stereotypical mammy and housemaid roles, played by actresses Hattie McDaniel and Louise Beavers, also came under the review of the NAACP. Improvements have been made over time, but credible roles for African American actors remain an issue. If Aunt Jemima was a real woman, she would have experienced 131 years of American history. She would have seen her people go from slavery to freedom, and from illiteracy to the enlightenment of education. She would have known about the pain of losing a child and the indignity of inequality. She would have been proud of the tenacity with which they pursued their human rights. It would not surprise her that the struggle for civil rights would be bitterly fought and that lives would be risked and lost. Aunt Jemima's end has come only after generations of African Americans shed the burden of a false identity to define themselves. Racism persists, but each generation, once informed by history, has demanded more for the next. Change has been a long time coming. As old Aunt Jemima takes her rest, she knows there is much more to be done. Aunt Jemima's removal from popular culture is in response to massive public protests against the systemic racism that affects Black lives every day. She is just one of many fictional characters that have been used to impugn the identity of real Black and brown people throughout the world. Learn more about stereotypes by visiting the collection at the African American Heritage Museum of Southern New Jersey in Atlantic City.